everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. I am John Sullivan, and we're here live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And back with another show, lots of interesting stuff to talk about. But as we always do, let us start. Oh, before I get any further, I just want to remind you that you can call in, call in the show and leave a comment, question, feedback, whatever vocal stylings you would like. The number right here, 866-315-FLX1, extension 810. And one of these days we'll get around to answering and playing some of your calls. So as we always do every week, we're going to start by updating the bankroll. And we had a good week last week. We only had 4 plays, but we started the week with a bankroll of $620. And on Friday night, we had 2 hockey plays. We lost on the Panthers. That was minus $21. And the Penguins -1 was a winner, and that was a profit of $27. And then over the weekend, we had the Chiefs and Colts under, and that was a winner for us, plus $20. And the Eagles +8 was a winner thanks to that missed late field goal by the Saints. And that was plus $21. If you do the math, our new bankroll is $667, and dividing by 30, as we always do, leaves us with a new bet size of $22. So I'm going to start with the sportsbook lesson today. And as I mentioned the last time we did a sportsbook lesson 2 weeks ago, we talked about covering different stats and using those stats later on down the road to help us develop a model and talk about modeling and using the model to help us pick sports bets. So last time we talked about points per possession, and this time we are going to talk about something called Corsi. And Corsi is a hockey analytics statistic, and it is designed to measure possession in hockey. What hockey doesn't have is a guy standing there with a stopwatch keeping track of possession for each team. Like this team, the possession in hockey goes back and forth all the time. So it is very difficult to keep track of that, specific number. So using stats that we can take from a box score of hockey, we can develop Corsi. And this, I'm going to point out, which I don't have in my notes here, is for even strength. And for those of you that don't follow hockey, even strength is when it's 5 skaters on 5 skaters. There's nobody in the penalty box, and the teams are equal number of players on the ice. So there is a strong correlation between possessing the puck and goal scoring. So if you're dominating the possession, it is more likely that you are going to win the hockey game. So we do want to measure, possessing how we want to find a way to measure possession. And Corsi relies on shots, and obviously you cannot shoot the puck unless you possess the puck. So the basic formula for Corsi, I have it here right on the page, is shots on goal plus missed shots. If somebody shoots the puck and it doesn't hit the goal, it isn't saved by the goalie, it's wide of the net, that's a missed shot. And then block shots, if somebody shoots the puck and it is blocked by a player before it gets to the goal area, that is considered a block shot. So that's the basic formula for Corsi. And then how it's, broken down and used when putting statistics into a model. There are many different ways to do it. Now, last time we talked about points per possession, and we had points per possession on offense and points per possession allowed on defense. Corsi can be done the exact same way. It can be determined Corsi for, that means your offense, your shots on goal, your missed shots, your block shots, your shots that were blocked. And then Corsi against, which is how many shots on goal you allowed, how many shots over, missed shots you allowed, how many shots that you blocked of your opponent. So it can be for or against. And then Corsi can also be calculated per player or per team. So if you want to compare two players, like if you're playing fantasy sports and you want to know which player is the one you want on your fantasy team, you can calculate Corsi for individual players. And you can also calculate Corsi per team. And that one applies to most of the show because we're going to talk about betting on hockey and betting on a team to win. So we want to look at Corsi per team. So before you raise your hands in the air and say, how do I do this on a spreadsheet? And I'm so confused and help me here. We have actually there are many places on the internet where you can get this information readily digestible. And the one I'm going to use today is a website called Hockey Reference. And you can see it right here. I put it up on the screen. In their analytics section, you can pick, you can go multiple years back, you can go by month, you can go by week. And I have the team results, my query here for, I'm going to pull it up a little bit. I know that it's not a great shot there. But this is Corsi for this season up to today. And if you look at these first three columns, you have Corsi for, Corsi against. These are the total number of shots, missed shots, shots that were blocked, and then the Corsi against. And then you have something called the Corsi for percentage, where they divide your fours over your total Corsi stats. And you can see the teams that have the highest Corsi for are the teams that are best at possessing the puck against their opponents. And you can see Carolina, San Jose, Winnipeg, Nashville, Calgary, surprisingly Montreal there, Boston, Florida, you can see are the best at possession so far. Now, you have to take into account that not all teams have played all other teams, and some teams have had easier schedules than others, and some teams have had injuries, and that will affect the things. But this is just a snapshot of Corsi percentage. So you can compare two teams quickly and easily for determining who's the better possessing the puck and who might be the favorite in the game. So that's about it for this week's sports lesson. I'm not going to delve into comparing Corsi for today's games. We got too much stuff to talk about. But I do want to point out that that's a very useful tool, and you can find much more about that on Hockey Reference. They have a bunch of analytical stats you can look into. PDO, Fenwick. Fenwick is a variation of Corsi. So that's it for this week's stat. So we're going to digest that one for a while. We'll come back with another one at the next lesson. So let's move on to the NHL. And we got 7 games tonight, which is kind of high for a Friday night. But some good matchups here. Of course, we got the Maple Leafs at the Panthers. And the Panthers are a good offensive team, but they don't have much of a home ice advantage. They play in a pretty empty house. And I'm a big believer in the Maple Leafs. Excuse me. They're the best, probably the most skilled offensive team. Their goaltending is really their biggest issue, but they have Freddie Anderson back, and I expect him to be adequate tonight. So I do like the Maple Leafs here. 139 is not a number I'd like to lay in hockey. Hockey, I always shoot for bigger paydays, so we'll see if that ends up on my list. The Canadiens, plus 132 at the Blue Jackets. Canadiens are a very competitive team. We just noticed they're very high on the Corsi stat there. The Blue Jackets, assuming they're over their Bobrovsky goaltending issue. He was kind of suspended from the team, I think. Not really sure what's going on there. I think their other goalie is better anyway, or has performed better this year. At 150, the Canadiens are definitely worth a look here. At 132, I don't think so. The Senators, plus 197 at the Hurricanes. Hurricanes are a highly skilled team, but they can be pushed around. They have had inconsistent goaltending, And if they could shore up some size on their D and get better, consistent goaltending, they could be a player, come playoff time. As I've said often when I handicap these hockey games, a team that's plus 200 that has all of its players, all of its major players, is tough to look past. And the Senators here have been playing very well. They're playing kind of in nothing-to-lose mode. I don't know if that's enough for me to take them on the money line, but we shall see. And then next we have the Islanders at the Capitals. And, boy, the Islanders have been playing great, and the Capitals this week not so great. I like the Capitals pretty much against anybody, but I'm not laying 187 even at home. Definitely not against this Islanders team, who has surprisingly solid goaltending and somewhat of an explosive offense if they can, put it together on a consistent basis. Don't like either side there. So then we move on to the Penguins at the Coyotes. This one's pretty obvious. The Coyotes have had massive injury issues and some shaky goaltending, and the Penguins have been they're on the long end of a long road trip, and I like them not at minus 143, but I sure do like the Penguins in that matchup. And then two interesting games on the West Coast tonight. We have the Red Wings at the Flames. The Red Wings getting plus 213. Flames coming off an overtime loss to the Sabres. Boy, you gotta like the Flames here. They rarely play two bad games in a row, and it's not like they played that bad against the Sabres either. The Red Wings are getting a really juicy number here, so maybe at a plus 1 or plus 1.5 that might be worth it, but we'll see. And then the Sabres at the Canucks, and the Sabres have been Jekyll and Hyde this season. They've had big winning streaks and big losing streaks. And Eichel is kind of back to himself. The last game was the first game where he really showed that he looked like he was 100% again. So I do like the Sabres here at plus money. Not sure that's enough for me to actually put a wager on it, but I feel like if the goaltending is good enough tonight for Buffalo, they'll win. Which is pretty much the same for any team, I guess. So we'll see how that all finishes up. And then we're going to skip our guessing the college basketball lines this week. Big win for Syracuse at Duke on Monday. That was very exciting. But we're going to move right on to the big Sunday NFL games. And it's interesting. These lines are basically exactly the same. The top two seeds from each conference are going at it. You have the Patriots at the Chiefs in the AFC. Chiefs are minus 3, or Patriots are plus 3 at plus money, and 56 is the over/under. And in the NFC, the Rams at the Saints, and the Rams are plus 3 at plus money, and 56 is the over/under. So let's start with the AFC here. The Patriots are an underdog, a rare underdog in the playoffs, even though they beat the Chiefs earlier in the season, and they came out with their own sweatshirts or T-shirts that say "Bet against us," something like that, and they're upset about that. That's just a narrative. I don't really care here. This game is going to be close, I believe. I don't, the Patriots are about 148 on the money line, plus 148. At minus 3 or plus 3.5, it's about minus 124. That's not good enough for me to take the plus 3.5, although that's where I would lean. The plus 4 is about minus 130. I think that if you look at both of these games, I took a good look at the over-unders, and if you're going to pick one to go over and to go under, it's kind of like the over would be on the indoor game and the under would be in the outdoor game. And, I'm just trying not to overthink it here. But, if you can get 57, that's, or better than 56, that's a key number, 57 and 58. I feel like, the low on Sunday is going to be 9 degrees in Kansas City. It's not supposed to be snowy or windy, but just the cold weather, you have to believe that there's going to be some issues. Brady's really good in bad weather. He's always been really good in bad weather, which is another reason why, I leaned the Patriots here. It's a tough call on that game. It's very evenly matched, but we'll see. I would guess I would lean the under there. So on the NFC side of the ball, you guys, I've said for the last 2 or 3 weeks, if you've been watching the show, that I think the Rams are the team to beat, and I missed out on my Rams future. I wanted them at plus 550. The Rams are plus 150 right now to win this game at the Saints. The Saints only scored 20 points last week against the Philly defense. And it's the exact same situation as the other game. The Rams at plus money at plus 3, and then at plus 3.5. It's minus 124, minus 125. The Rams are plus 150 on the money line right now. I feel like if it does come down to a kick, that the Rams have a better kicker and Greg the Leg Zuerlein than the Saints do and Will Lutz. I do feel like the Saints have, somewhat of a home field advantage with the loud Superdome. It was really loud for the Eagles last week, and you would think that Sean McVay versus Sean Payton. It's kind of like the new school versus the semi-old school. Here, we'll see if any trickeration happens. I saw that fake punt coming a mile away by the Saints last week. When you have Taysom Hill in the punt formation, that's the first thing you look for. And then 4th and 2, it was very strange that he didn't go for it. But this game, I just feel like the Rams, even though they let the number 1 seed slip away from them, they are the best team in the league. And I really can't get away from that. One game is one game. We'll see who's better prepared. But, you've got Gurley and C.J. Anderson versus Kamara and Ingram. If the Rams can take away Michael Thomas somewhat, shut him down a little more than the Eagles could, they have more weapons, I think, on the offensive side of the ball. They have, even though Cooper Kupp is out, they have more receivers. So I feel like this is Rams are the play here. So we will see how well that all happens. So I have some sports betting news I want to talk about, and I'm going to start right now with Tom Precious from the Buffalo News, covers Albany. Very big week in New York sports betting news. And Cuomo had his State of the State speech this week. And right before he gave that speech, Tom Precious tweeted, "Nobody will comment on the sports gambling issue. Stakeholders believe administration will soon issue regulations to permit on-site sports betting at 4 commercial casinos and Indian casinos. No online. We'll see if Cuomo raises it in the speech." And as we talked about before, the 4 casinos include the Del Lago that's in Waterloo. And then there's 3 other. There's Tioga Downs in the southern part of southern part of upstate near Binghamton. And then you have 2 other casinos in Monticello and Schenectady. And then you have the 3 Indian casinos in the Oneida Nation, which are near Syracuse. And then we'll see if any of the other Indian casinos take action. But one of the big points of all this is the no online this year. This means that, if you want to place a bet, you're coming here. You're coming to the casino, or you're going to one of the Native American casinos. And Daniel Wallach retweeted one of Tom's tweets in this covering the speech, and he says, Cuomo in the speech calls for permitting sports gambling in upstate casinos, no other details. It's here and it's a reality. So Cuomo wants this to happen, and my understanding, I couldn't find the tweets to put up for the show today, but it is expected that on or around January 28th, that the Gaming Enforcement Office will release the sports betting regulations. And once those regulations are released, all of these aforementioned casinos, the upstate casinos and the Indian casinos, can offer sports betting on site. Mobile sports betting is not legal in New York State right now, so they will have to legalize it in order for it to be allowed in the state. So this year looks like it's brick and mortar only, which means we're fortunate to be right down the street from one of these locations, and we'll be very excited to go through the whole process and let you know what is going on. So I've got one other topic I want to talk about in the sports betting news, and this could take a couple of minutes. Draftkings had their Sportsbook betting championship last week, and the contest ended in tremendous controversy, in my opinion. The last day of the contest, you were only allowed to bet on two games, which were the two NFL games, and some of the players bet on the first NFL game and received their winnings in time to bet on the second NFL game, while other players bet on the first game and did not receive their winnings in time to bet on the second game. And this resulted in some players not being able to make that last wager that they wanted to, and cost them, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what has happened here in the few days since last Sunday, we have a class action lawsuit filed against Draftkings for their actions in the sports betting championship. And I am not going to go into the detail. I have not read the brief. I'm not going to go into the details. I am going to put on my speculation cap, and I'm going to say that after a certain point, however many people join the lawsuit, I feel like it's in DraftKings' best interest to settle with any and all unhappy parties. There were only 260 contestants in the contest, and over 100 of them were busto. They had nothing left to wager by the time Sunday came around. So you're only talking about 160 people that were possibly impacted, and the first place finisher will certainly not complain. Anybody that got their winnings before the second game started had no reason to be upset. So you're talking about maybe 100 people impacted by this. And I think what DraftKings, if they were smart business people, which I hope they are, they would reach out to the people they would feel were impacted by this decision, offer them something, credit to their sportsbook accounts or the like, and put this behind them. The contest was well received in the sense that it was exciting and it was something new and different, and people enjoyed the activity. But the rules needed tweaking for sure, and the execution definitely needs improvement. So what will happen, I don't know. Somebody could end up raising a big stink out of this. And another, you have to give props to DraftKings for trying these. But when it first came out, they announced it about 4 or 5 months ago. And I said, boy, this is not a very skillful contest. It's about trying to run up your bankroll in 3 days. And it goes against every tenet of my instinct in sports betting for profit, where I'm trying to look at the long term and be selective and informed in my decisions, where this contest you're trying to hit big parlays for big payouts so you can win a prize. So it's props to them for trying. Their big marker is their overlay. They had overlay in this contest, which meant they paid out more than they took in. And it's going to be tough for people to want to boycott these events if they're just going to offer overlay. And it's going to force people to take chances on these things because they got a chance to win a big prize for a relatively small entry fee. And that's very interesting to me. And we'll follow that story as it goes along. So before we end the show here, let's take a look at my picks for this week. I got 2 plays on Friday and 2 plays on Sunday. On Friday, I'm going to take the Maple Leafs minus 1.5. I feel like they'll, get their act back together against the Panthers. It should be an up and down game. So minus 1.5 goals, plus 177. And then I'm going to take the Senators, who I feel like are playing really well, at plus 1, I believe, against the Hurricanes there. And that's at plus 125 are the odds on that. And then on Sunday, I'm going to take the Rams money line. I feel like they're the best team that's left. So I like those odds, plus 150. I actually have a bet on them already at plus 165. So you can see that there's some money been put on the Rams already. And then finally, the Pats and the Chiefs. I'm going to take the under, 56.5 at minus 110. I would really like to get 57 there. This game could go over. We'll see. Both of these teams have played better defensively recently, but the weather factor gives it a better chance of going under. So that's going to do it for this week on Sportsbook Confidential. I'm glad you stayed with us all through it, and I'm going to play the outro music, and let's get some winners. Take care, everybody. See you next time.